the cannons ring and the thunder rattle, rattle. You won't see a white flag lifting over me. When the smoke clears, it's me that you see. I love the fight. I love the fight.
Eileen Simon, Chair of the Legal Momentum Board of Directors. On behalf of the entire board, I'd like to welcome you to the 16th Annual Women of Achievement Awards, held virtually this year. I hope this day finds the audience healthy and looking forward to brighter times ahead. I've been involved with Legal Momentum since 2015 and can attest firsthand to the invaluable work the organization has done during that time. But Legal Momentum is the longest serving organization with 50 years of experience litigating, educating, advocating, and defending women's rights. Here are just some of the highlights. In the 1970s, it was founded as the National Organization of Women, or NOW, Legal Defense and Education Fund. It litigated Title VII and Title IX cases. During the 1980s, it founded the National Judicial Education Program to promote equality for women and men in the courts. In the 1990s, it drafted the Violence Against Women Act with then Senator, now President Biden. In the 2000s, it launched the Equality Works Project in New York City post 9/11. In 2004, it rebranded the now Legal Defense and Education Fund as Legal Momentum, as we know it today. In the 2010s, it effected changes in legislation to combat technology-driven domestic and sexual violence. And now, as we move into our 6th decade of action, the organization expanded its Women Valued initiative to focus on gender differences that are exacerbated by the pandemic. That's just a very short list of the impressive accomplishments that Legal Momentum has been able to achieve with the help of dedicated staff and volunteers. A simple thank you can't express deeply enough the impact that Legal Momentum has made on the lives of countless women. Now it's my privilege to introduce our MC for today's event, Michelle Leatham. Michelle was honored at the 2018 Women of Achievement Awards dinner. At that time, she held the position of Chief Legal Officer and Secretary for Rodan and Fields. A few months before the pandemic hit, she decided to retire. In her free time, Michelle enjoys hiking, gardening, cooking, reading, and in the last several months, she worked on various political campaigns. Fortunately, they were very successful. With campaign season in the rearview mirror, Michelle is turning to various volunteer opportunities. Fortunately for us, this includes Legal Momentum. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Eileen, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 16th Annual Women of Achievement Awards and the 50th anniversary for Legal Momentum. Wow, a whole half century of working to help women and girls. You know, it wasn't that long ago when I thought 50 was really old. But now that I've zoomed into my mid-60s, I realize we're just hitting our stride. And I so look forward to what's to come for this great organization. I support Legal Momentum as it pursues litigation, legislation, and education in virtually all aspects of women's rights. Everything from discrimination and harassment to equal pay, pregnancy rights, human trafficking, and so much more. If you haven't checked out the new website, please do, because you will find really fantastic resources there, including a news section devoted to helping workers with COVID-19. Thank you, Legal Momentum, for staying on top of what women and girls need. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce the President and Chief Executive Officer of this wonderful organization, a gracious woman who is a friend, mentor, and inspiration to many, Carol Baldwin Moody.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you, Eileen and Michelle, for those wonderful, wonderful remarks. Wow, 16th Annual Women of Achievement. That's a lot. But even bigger, 50 years. 50 years. You know, when I asked my team to go through the 50 years, the 5 decades, and find one or two things to highlight, it was like, really? But thank you, Eileen, for somehow getting us to highlight. It really is a difficult. I urge everybody to go back and look at our website, because it's 5 decades of safeguarding the rights of women and girls. and it's through landmark legislation and high-impact litigation. And we maintain, and this is like, people have mission statements. Ours has not changed. It's the unwavering commitment to gender equity, honoring the inextricable links to racial justice, and thus achieving equality for all. So how do we do it? Eileen also talked about the tools we use. We use all the tools in the law. We lead, we litigate, we educate, we advocate, we defend. So litigate. What are we talking about? We don't do many cases. We only take high-impact litigation. And that's litigation which, of course, will help our client, but which will have national implications. So we did 3 cases last year. Of course, if we had more funds, we might be able to do more. But the goal, the priorities are the same. It's high-impact litigation. And we supplement that litigation with, it says the frequent amicus briefs, I think it's like every day. And we really are called on to add our special expertise on so many amicus briefs. And I think what's wonderful about how we litigate is how we get our cases. And of course, we stay on top of what's happening in all of our pillar areas. But our SIMS Legal Momentum Helpline gets over 400 calls every year. And every single one of our cases usually is because of someone who has called our helpline. So we are on top of what's really happening today to women and girls. Educate, my favorite. I'm really, really big on education and preventing issues if we can. You'll hear more about our National Judicial Education Program in our upcoming conversation. But we have others. We have a Rights Now program, which is an incredible peer-to-peer education program. It's in our 4th year. Last year, we actually had workshops that over 400 young adults attended, and we talk about avoiding sexual violence, cyberbullying, and healthy relationships. It is an incredible program. We just started our workshops this year, and in 2 days, 70 people joined the Rights Now workshops, of course, virtually. And then our resources, our toolkit. We talked about this last year. We came out with the Women Value Toolkit, which, of course, since we're lawyers, is about 75 pages long, but is the most comprehensive toolkit that outlines all the rights of women in the workplace. And then when COVID came, we were able to take that and really, really refine it to identify those really hard issues for the most marginalized women, because, of course, COVID just exacerbates what we've been talking about all along about who is affected. Advocacy. This is something that we do all the time. And we're a valued partner and advisors to state and federal policymakers on both sides of the aisle. And let me just give you what's on the top of our advocacy chart right now. And now I'm going to have to read it because it's really cool. Dated January 2021. Think about it. To President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. Obviously, that will be changed to President Biden and Vice President Harris. And by the way, if you didn't see at the bottom of the screen of the history, Vice President Harris was our first public service honoree 16 years ago at Women of Achievement. Nothing else to say about that. And the title is An Urgent Reform Agenda to Build Back Toward Inclusive Gender Equity. The summary itself is 12 pages long. What does that mean? It means we made a lot of progress, but we remain keenly focused on the deeply rooted inequities that remain. Our work is not done. And then there's defend. Defend. I would say that in September 24th, 2020, we had a case to defend the integrity of Title IX. Title IX is something that's very important to our work. A majority of the cases that come through our helpline are Title IX assault cases. We joined with Pro Bono Counsel. I have to give a thanks to all of our Pro Bono Counsel with whom we could not do this work. And we joined with 7 partner organizations, and we filed an amicus brief in support of a cert petition seeking Supreme Court review of a lower court ruling. Cert was denied, but we still work. So I could go on all day, as I think you can tell, honoring the past, our history, and showing how we need to impact the future. But let's get to honoring these extraordinary honorees. And before we get to that, we have to give thanks. We have to give thanks to our supporters. We cannot, will not be able to do this work without your support. And I want to give a special mention to our major sponsors, Covington and Burling, Uber, McCrae, and NetApp. So back to Michelle, on with the show.
Now, let's get to the remarkable honorees of the 16th Annual Women of Achievement Awards, outstanding in the diversity of their backgrounds, professional accomplishments, and contributions to Legal Momentum's work in protecting the physical and economic security of our nation's women and girls. First, I'd like to introduce Isabella Min Fish, an 11th grade student at Crystal Springs Uplands School, and Sydney Min Fish, a 10th grade student at Menlo School, to present the Women of Achievement Award to their mother, Katharina Min, partner at Covington and Burling.
Hello, thank you all for being here today. We're honored to be here and to have this opportunity to introduce our mother, Katharina Min, for Legal Momentum's Woman of Achievement Award. I'm Isabella.
And I'm Sydney.
As young women ourselves, we are both so proud of our mom for the work she does, and excited by Legal Momentum's work towards gender equality, both inside and out of the courts.
Ever since we were little, our mom has instilled in us confidence and strength in anything we do. It's hard for me to remember a moment where she hasn't empowered us, either through her own actions or her words, or by hoarding everything that we've ever produced since elementary school.
The most common phrases said by our mom around the house are, "I need to do my timesheets."
And "Where's my phone?"
Now, we've really never really known what these timesheets are about, but recently we both picked up mock trial. If you didn't know, mock trial is a nationwide competition that simulates a real court case with a made-up fact situation. We're both learning just how hard it is to be a lawyer, something we didn't really understand when we were little. Words like mergers and acquisitions are starting to make sense, but timesheets we still have yet to learn.
Being at home with our mom for the last year, we've gotten to see the behind the scenes of all the work calls, meetings, emails, dinners, and events. It's hard to imagine that on top of this, she balances being a full-time mother to two very busy daughters, even though she still sometimes calls me Stella, the name of our dog. After a long day of back-to-back calls, Mom always comes home or just out of her office with a smile on her face asking us how our days were. We love you so much, Mom, and you inspire us to be our best selves every single day.
We are so proud and honored to introduce you all to our mom, Katharina Min.
Thank you, Isabella and Sydney, for such nice introduction. Mom and Dad are so proud of you and so grateful for you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Legal Momentum and to celebrate its 50th anniversary. First, I want to thank Legal Momentum for this incredible honor. This is especially meaningful because I'm included among these incredible honorees tonight. Judge Rosemary, Julia, my friend Fong, Sarita, and Matthew, and all those who were honored before us. And second, I want to congratulate the honorees. Thank you for your leadership and your inspiration. I'm very honored to be among you. For 50 years, Legal Momentum has been tirelessly working so that girls like Isabella and Sydney and those less fortunate than them are given a fair chance as they grow up, so that women and girls can live and work free of violence and discrimination. Legal Momentum has been strategic and inspirational. Tonight, I want to share an inspirational story that has driven me and that has been with me for a long time. I grew up in Korea, and my parents and 3 siblings immigrated to the U.S. when I was 12 years old. My parents were comfortable enough in Korea, but they knew that they were never going to be able to send their 3 daughters and 1 son to college. And they really wanted us to go to college because they never had that chance due to the Korean War. So they made the ultimate sacrifice by moving here, even when they didn't speak a word of English. I want to talk about the 2 people whose names and faces have long forgotten, who have inspired me at an early age. One is a neighborhood woman who came and drove my dad to work and brought him home after work. You see, my dad was an officer in the Army and he had a driver, so he didn't know how to drive. And until he got his license, she was like clockwork, taking him to work and bringing him home, and always cheerful. And I've always been so thankful. The other is a manager at the car dealership where my dad got his first job washing cars. On his first day, he went to work wearing his regular clothes and his leather shoes. He came home wearing totally different clothes, totally different shoes. So we gathered around to see what happened to him. He said that when he got to work, he was mortified to find that he was way overdressed for his job. And he stood there not knowing what to do. And his manager came over and quickly took him to a store and bought him work shirt, work pants, and work boots. The relief and gratitude on my dad's face said it all. And we were so moved and touched. I remember thinking, wow, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to study hard so that I can be the kind of person like them. Because you see, they probably didn't realize that what they thought was not that big of a deal had a huge impact on us. And it spared my dad's dignity. As immigrants to this country and many other immigrants, we were helped by so many others. But these 2 people really stand out and they stay with me. So I've tried to practice kindness, both random acts of kindness and increasingly strategic acts of kindness. I try to mentor, especially women and people of color, because I know the special challenges that we have. I help sponsor them. I put their names in when a big project comes up. I compliment them in front of their bosses. I try to get them noticed for leadership positions when they open up. I also make introductions so that those who are introduced can help each other, mentor each other. Sometimes these lead to jobs, to investments, to business, and just to great relationships. Legal Momentum has been practicing even more important strategic acts of kindness for 50 years for women and girls worldwide. Please join me in supporting Legal Momentum in whatever way you can. And join us to continue and multiply both random acts of kindness and strategic acts of kindness to those around you. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Congratulations, Katharina, for all of your fantastic accomplishments, including your 2 lovely daughters who have quite a role model for a mother. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Dee Poku Spalding, the founder and CEO of the We Suite, a private membership community and platform for women leaders, innovators, and creators. She will present the Women of Achievement Award to Julia Collins, founder and CEO of Planet Forward.
Hi everyone, it's such an honor to be here with you today. I cannot express to you what a thrill it is to present the Women of Achievement Award to the amazing Julia Collins. I met Julia when she spoke at an event I hosted for Black women founders a few years ago. I was immediately captivated by her warmth, her clarity, and her generosity. What I realized about her in those first few minutes was that she was the real deal. Julia Collins does not pay lip service. She genuinely cares about paying it forward and sharing all that she's learned in her incredibly successful career with all of us. And let's talk about that incredible career. Julia is the first Black woman to build a billion-dollar company, an incredible milestone that she achieved with Zoom Pizza, the food company she co-founded. She is a serial entrepreneur for whom food is a calling, and has launched several successful food-related companies, including Mexicue, Murray's Cheese Bar, and Harlem Jazz Enterprises, the company responsible for the award-winning restaurant The Cecil. She also cares so much about the sanctity of our planet that last year she merged those passions into a new business called Planet Forward, which tackles climate change by making it easier for companies to bring climate-friendly products to market. Julia is most definitely a woman of achievement, but she's also just an incredibly good, kind person. And what I love most about her is that generosity of spirit I mentioned earlier. Whether she's investing in fellow female founders, or speaking out on social justice issues on major platforms, or advising organizations on their give back initiatives, she's always putting her mind to how to make the world a better place. Congratulations, Julia. I am so, so proud of you.
It is with deep gratitude and appreciation that I accept this award. To be recognized as a woman of achievement amongst this year's esteemed awardees and building on a legacy of excellence, including prior awardees like Vice President Kamala Harris, is truly humbling. It's particularly special to be recognized this year when Legal Momentum celebrates its 50-year anniversary and recognizes its many accomplishments in important fields such as workplace equality, economic empowerment, combating violence against women and girls, and fighting for fairness in the courts, amongst many other initiatives. I want to thank all of you who have made contributions to the organization, and I also want to encourage each of us to make a sustaining contribution, as I have, to ensure that the work of Legal Momentum will continue for the next 50 years. I often think about what 50 years means within the context of my own life. What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to be true about the world as a result of my work and service? What's the legacy that I want to leave behind as I prepare to leave this planet? And the answer for me is clear. I dream of a world where women and girls are able to achieve the highest and the best use of our talents because opportunity is distributed equally. I dream of a world where one's sex and gender identity don't determine how safe you will be or how far you will go. I dream of a world where Amanda Gorman is President of the United States and Greta Thunberg leads the United Nations. I dream of a world where climate resilience is built into every economic and social policy so that human beings can continue to live safely on our home planet. I dream of a world where boys and men are taught to uphold the dignity and the rights of others, just as they uphold their own. And I believe that the work of organizations like Legal Momentum will make these dreams possible. I didn't have to go far as a little girl to look for models of excellence. I watched my mother, Paula Collins, build and lead companies. I watched her join and head corporate boards. I watched her volunteer for and create organizations serving her community and the public good. And now it's my turn to step forward and ensure that the rest of my life is also spent in service to uplifting others. I want to thank Loria Yaden, the CEO of the YMCA of Seattle, whose life's work has brought her to a point where social justice is the tune that she lives by, creating so much opportunity for others around her. Justice, equity, inclusion, diversity, these are often terms that we throw around, but for Loria, she actually lives and leads from these values every single day. I want to thank you, Loria, for nominating me for this award, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Thank you.
Congratulations, Julia, and thank you for working to save our planet and keep our stomachs happy. Next, I'm delighted to introduce Noreen Krall, Vice President, Chief Litigation Counsel for Apple, who will present the Women of Achievement Award to Sarita Venkat, Head of IP Transactions for Apple.
It is my great pleasure here today to introduce you to my dear friend and colleague, Sarita Venkat. Sarita works with me here in the Apple Legal Department as the Director of IP Transactions. In this role, she leads our evaluation, analysis, advice, and advocacy in high-stakes cutting-edge legal issues facing the company. In other words, Sarita is that person you want in the room and on your side when important issues are at stake. I have worked side by side with Sarita in our 10 years here together at Apple, both in her present role as well as her former role of an IP litigator. As a frequent face in courtrooms around the country, Sarita has been instrumental in blazing new territory in the area of standards, intellectual property rights, and remedies. Her legal globetrotting, of course, has been balanced with her role as the mother to two amazing young boys, as well as the wife of an ER doctor, and all of the challenges that a young family faces. Courageous and compassionate, strategic yet detail-oriented, it comes as no surprise Sarita has been recognized as a woman of influence in Silicon Valley, as well as a woman leader in tech law. In addition to her many accomplishments in the law, Sarita has been a longtime champion for women, especially those in underrepresented communities. As a board member and one of the founding members of the CHIPS NextGen initiative, Sarita worked tirelessly on efforts to make sure the next generation of the legal profession were afforded opportunities to learn and grow. This included creating opportunities for junior lawyers to appear in court, to participate in mock pitches to major clients, and to network with executives in technology and in government positions. I am so thrilled you are honoring Sarita today, and I am very honored myself to deliver this tribute to my dear friend in recognition of her many accomplishments. I look forward to many more years of working in partnership with Sarita and know that she can and will do so much more for the benefit of women and girls in society.
Thank you so much for that very generous introduction, Noreen. And thank you, Legal Momentum, for this incredible award. I was a bit nervous about writing a speech for this occasion, so I turned to my trusted speechwriters to get some guidance. They gave me this outline as follows. Hi, my name is Sarita Venkat. First of all, I am so honored to be here. Give a shout out. I would like to give a shout out to my husband and my sons, Balaji, Ishan, and Suhas, and also my community of friends and family who showed up for me today. And a special thank you to all my Apple colleagues for supporting me and for supporting Legal Momentum. Say who paved the way for you, who inspired you, and who should also get the award. I love the last one the most. First and foremost is my mom, Kavita Pendurthi, who courageously brought me and my two sisters from a small village in South India to this country, so that us girls had access to every opportunity we desired. Second is the whole host of women who I draw wisdom from through a podcast I co-created with my dear friend, Catherine Manerick. It's called Heels of Justice. It celebrates women trailblazers in law who are actually paving the way for all of us. They are stories that range from practicing law with fighter jets flying overhead to leaders striving to create inclusive environments for their teams, to fierce trial lawyers and judges advocating for gender and racial justice, sometimes with a baby strapped to their backs. All of these are amazing stories of struggle and triumph, but at the core of them all is a story of resilience, the type of resilience that gets us through a pandemic, for example. So, to answer my son's questions, these are the women who inspire me every day and who should also be handed this beautiful award. I also want to talk a little bit about the incredible new generation of law students. I've volunteered in various programs over time geared towards increasing the pipeline for women and students of color. Many of the students I've come across have faced and overcome real hardships, from having to help their single mom clean houses on the weekends to support their families, to being passed over for jobs and promotions because of their accent or skin color. I often ask the question, what problem have you solved? I've noticed a resounding theme that comes out of these answers. The stories inevitably entail these young people being able to stand firmly in someone else's underprivileged shoes in a way that no one else can, because they walk their whole life in those very same tattered shoes. That experience not only allows them to effectively advocate for meaningful change that lift up the very communities they grew up in, but it is also the bridge to create true understanding and empathy for the problems that need to be solved in the world today. This is why I feel exhilarated to be here amongst all of you. The purpose of Legal Momentum to provide equal opportunities, to remove as many barriers as we can so that this courageous new generation can rise up, is one I share deeply. Clearly, the best is yet to come. Let's see, what's next? Talk about how your boss needs to give you a raise because you got the same award as Kamala Harris. My dear Apple colleagues, you heard them. And also talk about how one time you made me write your speech. Thank you both for helping me write this. Talk about raising some male allies, huh? Thank you, Legal Momentum.
Excellent, Sarita, and my family personally thanks you for the many Apple products in our house. You and your team are obviously keeping very, very busy. I am now very happy to introduce Lynn Hecht Shafran, Legal Momentum's Legal Director and Director of the National Judicial Education Program for Legal Momentum for 40 years, a true champion of women's rights, who will introduce the Honorable Rosemarie Aquilina.
Judge Aquilina, it is my pleasure on behalf of Legal Momentum to confer on you our 2021 Women of Achievement Public Service Award. When you were 12, you immigrated to the United States with your parents as a stateless person. You became a naturalized citizen, a lawyer, a judge, a law professor, and even achieved the dream which we know is closest to your heart. You are a published author. You come from a military family, and you followed in that tradition. You became the first female member of the Michigan State Judge Advocate Corps in the Michigan Army National Guard, and you served in that capacity for 20 years. In 2018, the Michigan State Law School graduating class selected you as its commencement speaker, the first female faculty member to be so honored. You told the graduates that attorneys have life-altering power and stressed attorneys' critical role in ensuring that the voice of their clients was heard with strength and clarity. Your deep commitment to giving victims a voice was apparent in the Larry Nassar sexual abuse case. The prosecution had secured an unusual plea agreement. Nassar agreed that in addition to the victims in the 7 cases that were charged, all of his victims who wished to make victim impact statements could do so. In your courtroom, over 7 days, 156 young women made victim impact statements that were broadcast nationwide. As the survivors listened to each other's statements and to your supportive comments, many who had never intended to make statements on their own felt empowered to do so. You extended the hearing 3 times to enable more and more victims as they were coming forward to make their statements. When Nassar objected to the terms of his own plea agreement, you said, "I didn't want even one victim to lose their voice." Legal Momentum confers on you its 2021 Women of Achievement Public Service Award in appreciation for the courtroom environment that you created in the Nassar sexual abuse case that enabled so many to make their very painful, very personal victim impact statements directly to the abuser and to the nation. Let us hope that those who listened learned something.
Thank you. I am so very grateful. I am honored. I am humbled to receive this award. And I received this award not on my behalf, but on behalf of all of those victims, boys, men, women, girls, who have been nameless, who've been voiceless, who have been shamed and blamed for things that are not their fault. I have always, since I became a judge and prior to that a practitioner, believed in the power of our voices and that we can be our own heroes. And I have tried at that time of Nassar, which you mentioned, I've been a judge for 15 years, now 17 years, but since day one, I have looked at the Crime Victims' Rights Act broadly and let everyone speak. So when the people wanted everyone to speak, I said, absolutely. And in fact, they put in their plea agreement 125. I said, no, we're going to let everybody, because crime has no borders. And I think that's the beauty of this award, is that it really recognizes that pain can be heard in the legal system, in a courtroom, and that every judge should have the patience to listen and to use our power for healing, and let everybody who enters the courtroom leave with something good to feel about, because we see so much wrong in the world. And this award means that the voiceless have a voice, and that we've ignited something together that will go out throughout the world for an eternity. At least that's my hope. And that's what I'm going to see when I look at this award that you've granted me, is the hope for a world with a voice saying no more harm, and I want to be heard.
We can't thank you enough for voicing those sentiments, because I can tell you that one of the issues that Legal Momentum and I grapple with all the time is so many victims who, even those few who do try to use the justice system for cases like this, they feel that they're cut off, they're not in control, they aren't heard. And this opportunity was extraordinary. And we're going to talk about that a little more in our interview. And we thank you as well for allowing us to have, I think we have about 20 minutes to cover the waterfront. So I'm the director of the National Judicial Education Program. As you heard, I've been doing this for 40 years. So I am always interested to begin by asking judges what their background was, or what the judicial education was that was offered to them when they came on the bench, not necessarily coming from that background. I know you were a bankruptcy lawyer, and I know, as I said, that you were lawyer in the JAG Corps in the Michigan National Guard for 20 years, where I assume you saw everything. So my question is, what, if anything, did the state offer you when you first came on the bench? And what do you think should be provided to judges who don't have significant background in the area of sexual violence to prepare them to preside in a case like this?
So you're right. I had a huge background. I worked in the legislature. I was the first female JAG. And in the military, we are constantly trained and retrained and told to go to legal schools and all sorts of things that other attorneys don't have the opportunity to attend. And I had handled thousands of child abuse, neglect cases, family law, all sorts of different cases across the board. When I then get elected, I'm sent to judges school for a week on how to be a judge. And it's a lot different looking at the justice system behind the bench. And quite honestly, we're given very little, very, very little. I was just fortunate that throughout my career, I had a lot of pockets to pull information from and a lot of good mentors and people along the way. Judges should be required to continue their education, to go to school like we are in the military, to be trained in every way because of the diverse cases that we have, including sexual assault, human trafficking, carjacking. There's a lot of crimes that come up, and the effects of those. We're not therapists, but what happens in our courtroom affects the community, affects the defendant, affects the victim, affects everybody so dramatically that we need to be better equipped. I have to say, the training that I had that I brought to the bench was what I learned in life. And of course, I've been a law professor for 35 years. So I'm constantly worried that everyone knows more than me. So I love that I teach, because the students ask me these brilliant questions and they want to go out and change the world. And I want them to be changers of the world. I feel like I have a lot of mini-me's out there. So we have a lot of fun, and I'm always worried, what don't I know? So I educate myself on the changing world by virtue of teaching. I think the best way to learn is to be a teacher and have those students who are inquisitive.
Well, I think you'll just be interested to know that A number of years ago, I published a 2-day curriculum on sexual violence cases, and I've given it across the country. And based on what the judges said to me, I decided I was going to try to put together something for new judges rotating into this arena. And I sent out a 1-question survey. What did you wish you had known before you presided in an adult victim sexual violence case? And I can tell you that what came back was really frightening, because these judges, they were really candid, and they did not know even the most basic thing. They did not know, apropos of the Nassar case, that the vast majority of sexual violence is committed by someone known to or related to the victim. So there's a lot that needs to be done in this arena. So going back to this issue of giving voice to the voiceless and the victim impact statements, as I mentioned before, the plea agreement that the prosecutors secured was very unusual in that it enabled victims who were not charged, whose cases were not charged, to make statements if they wished to do so. And ultimately, there were 156 women who made victim impact statements. And as I noted before, you actually extended that hearing for 3 different times to enable as many the victims, and in some cases their parents, to speak. So I'm interested to know what kind of a response there was to this very unusual plea, and to your giving it the fullest possible expression of what was intended there. What was the response from the public, and what was the response from your fellow members of the bench?
So I have done this thousands of times prior to the people came and said, we've done this in one other case and we want this to happen. I said, well, I'm not going to put a limit, and it's no problem. I understand the healing effects of this and the need to expand the Crime Victims' Rights Act to give people a voice. Crime has no borders. So I've always taken criticism. You know, people want to get back to their office. The sheriff wants his people back. Attorneys want to go back and make more money, and my staff wants a break. I don't care about those things. The only thing that is important is the case that's in front of me. The only thing on my mind during those 7 days were listening to everybody and the safety of everyone and all of that. The outpouring of that was a couple of things. First of all, I didn't hear from any female judges this was the wrong thing to do. But I did hear from a few male judges who said, how dare you? Now we have to do that. You should be off the bench and ashamed of yourself. No one can ever say that a victim can't speak now, and those kinds of things. Thankfully, that was the minority of voices. Most of the voices, lawyers, judges, not just in the United States, but literally around the world, said, I'm watching what you've done. I'm studying it. I'm now asking what you say. What would you like me to know? And how can I help? I am looking at doing what you've done with giving each victim something to hang on to as they leave stoically the courtroom after speaking so bravely. And literally people around the world have said, I'm studying this. The shock to me was that I did not know this was not being done, because I've always done it. Granted, I've never listened to 169. 156 I dubbed sister survivors. Many of them had not known each other. In those moments, they became absolutely, and still are to this day, bonded, supporting each other. I let parents talk. I let coaches talk. I let a doctor who had referred so many people to Nassar, and he was angry. And each one of them, you could see how they came so small and angry and just unsure of themselves. And as they spoke, they grew. They grew certain. They grew sharper. They grew confident. And you could see they started to heal. I think this needs to happen in every courtroom. I'll take the hits for it. I don't care. If I am not allowed to do this, I will get off the bench and fight for the right to do this. I am hoping at some point the Supreme Court and the legislators expand the Crime Victims' Rights Act to include that judges like me can read it broadly, and anybody affected by a crime has the right to testify in, by the way, their public courtroom. It's not my courtroom, it's theirs. Let's give voice. Let's hear what's happened. Let's take action.
So another aspect of this case, of course, is the stunning number of victims. And we have seen, I almost want to use the word, an avalanche of victims lately. We've seen this case, we've seen the Epstein case, we've seen the Cosby case, we've seen the Weinstein case. One of the things that concerns me, and I'm interested in your view on this, is that we are creating in the public mind an expectation that the credible sexual violence victim is the victim who has other victims, around the block. That when the individual victim comes forward, which is in the vast majority of these cases, she or he is just not going to be believed, cast aside.
I am hoping that we're not creating that. I think that what I've seen, what I've heard, I talk around the world on this issue, and I think that what we're really creating is that when someone speaks about, I've been assaulted, I've been hurt, I've been raped, I've been trafficked, we need to listen to every voice and to act. If you think about any of these cases, let's start with Nassar. That was the one in front of me, but any of the ones you've mentioned and countless others, if somebody would have taken action with the first voice, that case never would have been mine. It would have stopped at one person. So one person, every single voice matters, and we must all take action so that we don't end up with an avalanche of victims that go around the block. What we need to do is be aware, because there's this fear that there's false reporting, and so you need multiple people. Well, that is a myth. Sexual assault is, the rate of false reports is the same as every other crime. It is not unique in that. And that is why we have the jury system. And that is why we have cross-examination. So let the system work. The first thing we must do is believe. The first time someone says, I've been hurt, dial 911, get them to law enforcement, get the evidence, have them talk to a forensic examiner. There's so many fail in this whole arena. We need to fix those issues and not worry about what message there is, that there's victims that go for miles. That's just a really sad statement. Does it take that many victims to believe a woman? Why are we still second-class citizen? And by the way, men get raped too. Boys get raped.
Absolutely.
Why?
There's a new article in the Washington Post magazine day before yesterday about boys as victims of sexual violence. And I can tell you that when I wrote the sexual violence curriculum that I mentioned before, and I included male victims, this was like 1992, and I claimed that contrary to belief, that the 14-year-old boy who was so lucky to have a sexual relationship with his 32-year-old female teacher was not lucky, and later in life might realize that he had been exploited just as much as any young woman. I took a lot of flack for that in those days.
And you were absolutely right.
So let's talk a little bit. We're talking about victims. Let's talk about enablers. So constantly in the Larry Nassar case, those who were making victim impact statements spoke about USA Gymnastics, the Olympic Committee, and so on. Ali Reisman certainly spoke about this extensively in her home community of Boston. I'm sure that many people heard Simone Biles speaking on 60 Minutes the other day. She was asked specifically, if you ever have a daughter, would you let her go into gymnastics? And she said, no, because I don't feel comfortable enough, because they haven't taken accountability for their actions and what they've done, and they haven't ensured us that it's never going to happen again. So here we have, I have read so many of the accounts. I have read the Department of Education account. There are so many enablers in this case who are not just enablers. We have found out that they themselves are sexually abusing young people, that it is breathtaking. So what's your sense about how we are going to create accountability in these cases?
Interestingly enough, I agree with Simone. I have a daughter who wants to do gymnastics, and I've said, no, it's not cleaned up. I'm frightened. I think a lot of people need to be frightened, and we need to take action. There are very simple things we can do. For example, why are we voting for judges and legislators who aren't legislating, who aren't ruling properly, who aren't giving people voice? Why are we sponsoring the Olympics? Why aren't we as people saying, okay, Coca-Cola, if you want to sponsor the Olympics, then you demand they clean it up first? Because it seems to me that in this world, money talks. And unless we have, we're pulling out the money, there's not going to be meaningful action. They are simply putting Band-Aids on this problem. And all of those enablers, whether or not they are actually doing the act or they're just turning their back, anybody who's not voicing that there's a problem here are a co-conspirator. There's a co-conspiracy there. They're equally liable for that crime, right? Because they are doing nothing. So they're turning their back on someone who's voiceless and allowing the abuse to continue. So we need to say, we want to know what happened. We want documents turned over right away. We want penalties. If there's going to be the Olympics, well, then let's have everything cleaned up and the sponsors all pull out until it is. And then when it's cleaned up, then they join in again. And Olympics doesn't just mean the games that are going to be played in now 2021. But let's look at, how do we get those champions? They start when they go to school. Let's give children voice, allow them to say no, allow them to have informed consent, have rules in every system where children and other people who can't speak up for themselves, don't let them be alone with someone. Make sure there's rules, retraining. If a teacher hasn't gone through the training and retraining, then they can't work until they do. Stop passing the buck so that if a bus driver, if a coach, if a teacher has been accused of something, don't send them to the next district. Put them on paid leave and let the legal system work. Right now, we're not even following our own rules. It's disturbing. We have a lot of work to do, and I could spend the next hour talking about things that we need to do, including, by the way, if you look just at Nassar, there were thousands of charges that were not charged, which again victimizes the victim. Just one of his victims was assaulted over 800 times, yet there was one charge. You have to ask, why would they do that? Why allow prosecutors to pick and choose? Why not let our jury system work?
Well, I know that I have a lot of faith in the jury system too, but I'd have to say that I think that there is so much misinformation out there. And I mean, I work in the area of the intersection of sexual assault and domestic violence. I mean, jury research, people who, they don't believe that a man would ever rape his wife. They don't believe that it does any psychological harm because these are people who are used to having consensual sex. Sometimes the juries haven't caught up with us, and it's a problem. And I understand sometimes why prosecutors have to, shall we say, why they feel that in light of what they can do in their own communities, where the community is, they have to, as you say, pick and choose. But that brings me to actually the statement that the prosecutor made, because she's picking up on your notion of the hard cases. So let me just read this little list. After all of the victim impact statements were made in your courtroom, the prosecutor made a statement to you. And one of the things she said was that she had 7, I'll use the phrase takeaways, things that she hoped people would learn from this. Start by believing, which you talked about. And I always say start by believing means that if someone makes a disclosure to you, don't ask what color shoes they were wearing, which happened in a famous case here in New York. Anyone can be a perpetrator, doesn't matter how celebrated and distinguished. Delayed disclosure is the norm. This is a big issue with juries. Predators groom victims and families. I think we saw that in the victim impact statements. These parents who came forward just horrified at what they had not grasped. Teach our girls and boys to speak up. This is tough because you're afraid to speak up for so many reasons, beginning with not being believed. But then police and prosecutors must take the hard cases. I think this is really interesting in terms of what the obligation is for prosecutors in terms of taking a case that is not just grounded in their belief about reasonable doubt, but what they think they can prove to a jury. And there's a lot of tension there. And then finally, we need investigative journalists more than ever. And that was certainly in this case. This is the Indianapolis story that broke everything open. So in terms of where we are now in our evolution, shall we say, in dealing with these cases, and whatever you've heard in the last several months, since several years, actually 2018, that these cases have been going forward and so on, do you think that people are learning anything, that there is a different attitude out there, or are we still climbing, the myth of Sisyphus or whatever? We're just rolling the rock up the hill.
We have a lot of work to do. And as you say, what you're talking about really is jury nullification. There is such a thing as jury nullification. I have been witness to it. I've seen it. And that's that rock rolling up the hill. But what we need to do is to continue this momentum, to do what you are all doing, to talk about it, to educate, to make sure that there are places where if a child is abused, they are taken so that they can be forensically interviewed properly. People don't even know what a forensic interview is. You talked about gaslighting and grooming. We need to teach people what that is. At the Heart of Gold, I think the movie about the Nassar case shows the grooming and gaslighting. But as I talk after those movies, there's questions and answers that I've attended. 100% of the time, I've been asked, what exactly is gaslighting? What is grooming? And that tells me we have so much work to do. So we need to start when children are very young and teach them body parts, teach them to talk until someone hears, to not be alone with a trusted adult, that anybody can hurt them. We also need to, I think, mandate that prosecutors, I understand they want to win their cases, but they're really not the jury. I know they have to prove their case, but what was wrong? If Nassar touched someone 800 times, why weren't there 800 charges? They certainly had the evidence. It is troubling to me, and I think we all need to change the way we are in order to join together to educate the world and bring them along. We need to not use words like why shames and blames. That's why I ask, what would you like me to know? We need to teach judges, prosecutors, police, educators, lawyers, what language should we use to get the most information we can so that we can take a case to trial, or so that we should dismiss it because there isn't enough. I think that when we get the right information, that will also change. But really keeping the conversation going and knowing there is such a thing as marital rape. It only became illegal in the last 20 years in all the 50 states. But even talking about those things, and that this behavior is not acceptable, changing the way we touch each other, for example. It's not okay to tell a 5-year-old, well, that boy pulled your hair because he likes you, because that is the beginning of domestic violence. That's saying if a boy touches you wrong, he likes you. Well, that's backwards. We need to not shame and blame. We need to also tell boys, if a girl hits you, it's not because she likes you, it's wrong. We need to write each other Valentine's cards 365 days a year, not hit each other, not touch each other wrong, and refer to private parts as penis and vagina. That's what they are. Why are we embarrassed to say those words? It's troubling. We need to keep the education and this momentum going in order for meaningful change and eradication of silence and these kinds of crimes.
Well, Judge Aquilina, taking your phrase, eradication of silence, what happened in this case was amazing. And I know I have read a great deal about it. And obviously there were some people who felt it was wrong for you to enable, whatever word we should use, all of these victims to come forward and speak. But I know that it has made such a difference in so many people's lives. And I think particularly seeing the victims who had not intended to make a victim impact statement feel empowered to do so as they listened to their sister survivors speak And as they listened to you and they realized that in that environment of your courtroom, they would be respected and it was possible for them to go forward. So we thank you for the work that you are doing. All the comments that you have just made, we hope will be heard. And so again, congratulations. We are very, very happy that we were able to confer on you this Distinguished Service Award this year.
I'm so deeply honored and touched. And as your mission goes forward, I support you. And if there's anything I can do, please reach out. We all need to partner together and join in this fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn and Judge Aquilina, for those fascinating and inspiring remarks. We appreciate you. I'd now like to take this opportunity to ask all of you to make a financial contribution to Legal Momentum to support its mission to protect the economic and physical security of women and girls. I know I have personally profited from their good work over the last 50 years, and I'm sure the same is true for all of you. So let's pay it forward. Please click on the donation tab directly below this video to make a contribution. Thank you. Next, I have the pleasure to introduce Susan Iondi, Partner, Employment and Compensation Law at Baker & McKenzie LLP, who will present the Women of Achievement Award to Fong Phillips.
Thank you. During this month where we celebrate International Women's Day, I am honored to be presenting this award to Fong Phillips. When Fong asked if I would introduce her today, I think she had barely finished her question before I said yes. She then continued to try to explain, and I just kept saying, yes, of course I will. Of course, later I did realize that I better learn a bit more about this prestigious award and what I had agreed to. The more I learned about Legal Momentum, the oldest legal defense and education fund for women and girls in the United States, its recognition of the intersection of gender and racial discrimination, and its focus on changing the culture of inequality that still exists in the United States through its areas of legal impact, the more excited I was that I had said yes so unequivocally, and the more grateful I was and am to count Fong as a friend. So what is it about Fong that not only embodies the mission of Legal Momentum and puts her squarely in the company of the many other amazing recipients of this recognition, but also inspires, in my case, a level of blind enthusiasm to support such a wonderful friend and lawyer in the best way? Well, let me share a few things with you. And I can tell you right now, Fong is probably a little worried because, in full disclosure, she is one of my oldest, longest, and best friends. But not to worry, Fong, I'll rein it in. Fong honed her skills as a corporate attorney in the Valley, learning and eventually leading tech companies through financings, M&A, and IPOs. Her substantive expertise, intense work ethic, dedication to her clients, and ability to build relationships led her to roles as VP and Deputy General Counsel at SolarCity, then as Associate General Counsel at Tesla, and currently as the Chief Legal Officer for Zynga, which also means that she is one of few women leading a legal department in the gaming industry. True to form, Fong rose to the challenge upon joining Zynga and has not only embraced gaming and converting everyone she knows to expand their horizons beyond Words with Friends, but has also leveraged her platform to confront some of the challenges faced by women and girls in the industry. Fong serves as the executive chair of Women at Zynga, an ERG offering a variety of programming for women in gaming, and has helped strategize and implement a multi-million-dollar fund for diversity and inclusion purposes at Zynga. All of this while leading the legal team at Zynga through several growth-oriented acquisitions over the past few years for a total implied valuation of over several $billion, multi-year licensing agreements with some of the world's most recognizable entertainment brands, and product marketing deals with artists that even my teenagers and I both like, just to name a few. Fong also serves on the board of the California Minority Council Program, as well as the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley and Project Glimmer. She's also the Director of Operations for the Straubel Foundation. All of that, and Fong is also a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother to two amazing girls, and a new aunt. She's a mentor, a champion, a supporter, a confidant, and a good friend. So how does she do all of this? Well, as long as I have known Fong, she has always been one of the most brilliant, motivated, energizing, disciplined, hilarious, and inclusive people I know. She once said that I was her role model. Well, the tables may have turned, my friend. So with that, I am pleased to introduce Fong Phillips.
Good evening. Thank you to my dear friend and mentor, Susan Andy, for that incredible introduction. I just love that Susan and I have known each other for over 23 years, and yet we are both magically only 18 years old. I am Fong Phillips, and I'm honored to be here with everyone, although virtually, to celebrate Legal Momentum's 50th anniversary. The work of Legal Momentum is exactly what this country needs right now. Women have always faced adversity, but in this pandemic, women are faced with even more immense hardships. We need to protect our fellow sisters against violence, provide workplace equality, and ensure fairness in the courts by educating judges about gender bias and gender-based violence. Please consider financially supporting Legal Momentum's efforts. It is our obligation to make sure we are using our voice and power to help the current and future generation of women. Tonight, I also want to thank Legal Momentum for honoring me with the Women of Achievement Award, along with the other spectacular winners. I hope we can celebrate in person very soon. When Legal Momentum first shared that I was receiving this award, I was absolutely floored. Many of the past winners are women I've admired and strived to be like as leaders. In fact, some of them have served as my mentor and sponsor, including Jan Kang, Sonia Perkins, and Michelle Banks, to name a few. This award is truly one of the highlights of my career, and I am forever grateful to be included with this esteemed group of winners. As a chief legal officer at Zynga, one of the main reasons I joined this gaming company was to change the gaming industry's reputation of being an all-boys club. I always wanted to work for a mission-based company, but I wasn't sure what that was for Zynga. During my interview with Frank Chabot, Zynga's CEO, he shared that 60% of our customers were women. I then commented that I didn't see 60% of the employee base being women. At that moment, I realized what my mission would be for Zynga. I wanted to help increase diversity for women and people of color at Zynga, but also the gaming industry. Zynga has made so many wonderful strides. The board of directors is 50% women, and I'm proud to share that my legal department is about 80% women and 50% people of color. Hiring a talented, diverse team is just the start. We have to retain these employees by treating them equitably and making sure there is equal pay and equal opportunity for advancement. These values have been instilled in me my whole life by my parents. My family and I escaped Vietnam by boat in 1980, and when we were in the refugee camp in the Philippines, we were initially sponsored by a family in Paris who was willing to take all 5 of us, my parents and my siblings. My father, who's a practicing Buddhist, went to the Buddhist monk on site and asked what he should do. The Buddhist monk said he should be grateful that the sponsor was willing to take our entire family. At that time, many families were split up. However, the monk continued, if you want your only daughter to be successful, you must be patient and wait for a family in the United States to sponsor you. My father unilaterally made that decision to wait for a family in the United States to sponsor us. And at that time, you didn't know how long that wait could be. He and my mother made all these sacrifices so I could be educated and have the best opportunities given to me in the United States. For that, I am forever indebted to them. Coming from an Asian family, many families put their sons as a coveted child, but not my parents. They always supported my dreams and sadly some of my failures too, because they wanted to raise an independent woman who is kind and willing to help and protect others, especially those who are less fortunate. Thank you again to Legal Momentum for this Women of Achievement Award. It has made my parents proud, and your organization represents the spirit of my life lessons. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Fong, we are so grateful for the work you do to advance women. You are an inspiration. And now I will introduce our final presenter for the evening, Connie Brenton, Vice President, Law, Technology, and Operations of NetApp, who will introduce the man of distinction for this evening, Matthew Fawcett, Senior Vice President and General Counsel of NetApp.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to introduce you to Legal Momentum's man of distinction, Matt Fawcett. Matt Fawcett is a groundbreaking business leader, a thoughtful mentor, and a potent advocate for equality. Matt was recently promoted to Chief Strategy and Legal Officer at NetApp, which is a Fortune 500 cloud data services and data management company. In his previous role as General Counsel at NetApp, he led the transformation of the global legal department into a high-performance, award-winning organization with a deep commitment to innovation. As one of the leading voices on the intersection of law, technology, and business, Matt was named one of America's top 50 general counsel by the National Law Journal. He's also widely recognized for redefining the role of legal counsel in the modern corporation. He's also widely recognized as an advocate for women and women's causes. In fact, he is often the only man in the room. Under Matt's leadership and mentorship, the NetApp Legal Department has grown to over 65% women, including promoting women to many key leadership positions, including contracts, data privacy, legal operations, government relations. Matt has been a constant advocate for women in the corporate world, a world often underrepresented by women, especially in the legal and technology profession. While a lot of corporate leaders talk a good game, Matt has always led with his actions. The great philosopher Socrates once said, "Let him that would move the world first move himself." That's Matt. As an advocate for all aspects of equality, Matt also serves as an executive sponsor of one of NetApp's diversity, inclusion, and belonging communities, fostering the inclusion and advancement not only of women, but of also African Americans and minority communities within NetApp. Because of Matt, I have had the incredible opportunity to work, learn, and grow my professional career at NetApp for over a decade, working for and with him. I have a mantra of do something every day that scares you, and he is a frequent contributor in that challenge, always pushing, always making a profound impact. It is with great admiration and gratitude that I introduce you to Legal Momentum's 2021 Man of Distinction, Matt Fawcett.
It's such an honor to be part of the 2021 Women of Achievement Awards, and I'm proud and humbled to be included alongside this slate of phenomenal leaders. Congratulations to all the honorees, and thank you for the work you do. It's especially poignant to be honored this year as Legal Momentum celebrates 50 years of being an unwavering champion of gender equity in education, the workplace, and the judicial system. And as I'm just a tad older than Legal Momentum, this recognition gave me a chance to reflect on the many women to whom I owe gratitude, thanks, and love for my life and my career. My mother, who at 20 years old and parentless, left a small Texas town and moved to San Francisco to build her life. My wife, a first-generation American who built her own purposeful life here with deep gratitude and respect for the opportunities our country afforded her. And my daughter, who's on the cusp of her independence during a period of profound societal dislocation and transformation. Mom, Nadia Ainsley, I love you. And I've also been so lucky to have women at key incubation and developmental stages of my professional life. My law review note counselor, Carol Goldberg, who showed me how a single passionate voice consistently and thoughtfully applied could make a real difference in the world. In her case, in advancing safety and justice in Native American tribal communities. My first law firm boss, Phyllis Andelin, who by example taught me what true, fierce client loyalty and advocacy looked like. And Connie Brenton, who introduced me today, and who lives by the mantra, do something that scares you every day. And in so doing, has taught me how to be courageous and unconventional. And I'd like to take my remaining time to celebrate and eulogize a woman of profound character, who I knew just a little bit personally, but whose impact on the legal system and on society cannot be overstated. As I'm sure many people here know, Professor Deborah Rohde passed away earlier this year. In her 4 decades teaching at Stanford, she produced 30 books, 200 law review articles, countless op-ed pieces, and is far and away the most cited scholar in legal ethics. It has been written that Professor Rohde transformed the field of legal ethics from little more than a crib sheet for passing the bar exam into an empirically rich, morally rigorous investigation into how lawyers should serve the public. She reshaped the field from rote adherence to Bar Association rules to the vastly more interesting, subtle, and complex ideas of the politics and interests behind those rules, especially those that limited who could practice law. She was a deep thinker, a trailblazer, a prolific and profound author, and an innovator. And it should be no surprise that she was also the vice chair of Legal Momentum for the past 21 years. I'd like to read one of her more frequently quoted pieces. Enduring satisfaction is most often a byproduct of participating in worthwhile activities that do not have happiness as their primary goal. Ultimate fulfillment comes from a sense of remaining true to core ideals and principles and of using life for something of value that outlasts it. And she certainly did. Thank you, Legal Momentum, for this incredible recognition, and congratulations for 50 years of dedication and commitment to gender equity. And thank you in advance for your next 50 years of impacting lives around the world.
Congratulations, Matthew. I have been very grateful for the help of a few good men as I've navigated some very manly waters over the years. My hat's off to you and all of the other men who have helped the women here tonight. Now, let me explain my wardrobe change. I am wearing the Women of Achievement denim monogram jacket that all honorees will be receiving. As you know, you are joining an incredible group that includes none other than Vice President Kamala Harris. So we are looking forward to great things to come from all of you. I am quite sure she will not be the last honoree to make it to the White House. Please wear your jacket proudly, and I look forward to seeing you and our past Women of Achievement honorees wearing it when we all gather in person for the 2022 celebration. I am now delighted to hand things over to Carol Baldwin Moody, who will make her closing remarks.
So thank you, everyone. These celebrations really carry us through the year. Please, we need your support. There's a donate button at the bottom of the screen. And of course, you can go to our website, www.legalmomentum.org. But wait a minute, the celebration's not over. Please join us in our after party live chat where you can chat with the honorees and continue the conversation. Instructions for how to do that will be up momentarily. Good thing I don't have to do it. So thank you. See you later. Stay well.